14 months until the 2020 presidential election. The Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primary, still a ways off into February of next year, but no mistake, the race is on. And one of our favorite guests is back on the program as he gets ready to welcome in a new flock of students to his classroom, or is it a lecture hall? Dr. Sam Nelson, political science chair at the University of Toledo. And Sam, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to be here.
Okay, here we are. You get ready to start a new semester, a new year at UT. With that, we're getting ready for another presidential race. Does it make anything different in terms of what you bring to the table, what young students will look forward to?
Yeah, I think so. I think we get a little buzz of excitement in American government classes, things like that, an uptick in enrollment in those classes as students are starting to think about things, and then into the spring. We've got a couple of recent graduates who are out in Iowa learning all these little towns, working on campaigns. They can maybe come back and talk a little bit after the campaigns are over. So yeah, it gives us some energy and some things.
Iowa, February 3rd of next year, right?
Yeah.
But so much talk these days, the Democratic candidates kind of dominate the cycle, along with President Trump.
Right.
But is it a case where Joe Biden just needs to kind of stay out of his own way on the way to a nomination?
I would describe that as his current campaign strategy.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Just don't trip over my own feet. And he's not campaigning as heavily as other candidates. He's not out there as much. He's not doing as many appearances. He's running a kind of a traditional front-runners campaign, a traditional incumbents campaign, even though he's not an incumbent. And so he wants to sit there as, I'm the most electable, you know, let me handle it. I've got a lot of experience. Other people are hustling pretty hard. And, you know, catching up a little bit.
But as we speak here, taping before the Sunday program, another candidate drops out of the race.
Right.
How long can these candidates who poll at 1%, 2%, 5% stay in?
Well, they can stay in a long time officially. I mean, because what are they really doing? How much money are they really spending? If they're not running TV ads, if they're not doing a lot of appearances, it's kind of a campaign in name, but not really. I mean, Mike Gravel's campaign, he's dropped out, was two guys that said, hey, could we run you for office? We'll do the social media. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So the candidates that are way back now, they're the nominee, but they're not expending a lot of effort necessarily either. They're not going to break through. They can hang around for a while, but they're not really factors.
And those who are polling higher on the upper echelon, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, looking to continue to make inroads and go after Joe Biden, right? So this is where the real competition comes into play.
Right. And so this next debate in September,
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and maybe all five of the top pollers are going to be on stage at the same time. Maybe we start to see some direct interaction between them, and that can make a big difference. People start to pay a lot more attention after Labor Day to the campaign. Iowa starts to come up very fast. A lot of things can happen.
Were you surprised that Tom Steyer got in officially last month? It's so late in the game, but he has so much money, and he's spending so much money already.
Really rich guys never surprise me. I mean, he doesn't need volunteers. He doesn't need an apparatus. He just can spend his way. He's spending an awful lot of money to get those little donors that get him into the debate. It's a kind of a crazy campaign strategy, but you can do that if you're him.
Moving forward to whoever wins the Democratic nomination, you've gone on the record saying Ohio is not so much the bellwether, the swing state that it used to be, right?
Right. I don't think it is. Not in 2020. It may come back to this in the future. It's really surprising because it's been a bellwether for over a century. But, you know, as Northeast Ohio has moved over to the Republicans, that's taken it away from the competitive state list. Texas was closer than Ohio last time. And so I don't think it's going to be terribly competitive here.
That being said, Toledo could still be important.
Yeah.
Right? Going forward to the election?
Absolutely. Toledo being right on the border with Michigan, the TV market, we're going to see TV ads that may be more directed at Michigan voters than at Ohio voters. Ohio voters at the same time. Michigan and Ohio have primary the same day. So that'll certainly matter. We'll see a lot of activity during the primary because things are going to be up for grabs in March when we have the state primary. But in terms of a lot of campaigning activity, we're more likely to see people just across the border in Michigan making their appearances than we are to see them here.
So Joe Biden leads every poll going forward here. President Trump has approval rating of some 95% of Republicans,
Right.
but an approval rating that is less than that 50% bar across the country.
Right.
So going forward here in the era of Trump, Dr. Nelson, what do you look at looking ahead to 2020 next November?
Well, anytime an incumbent is on the ballot, it's really a referendum. The election's largely a referendum on them and on their presidency. And so whoever the Democratic nominee is, Trump is going to be kind of the big factor for or against. People really support him, they really oppose him. That's going to probably be more important than which Democratic candidate becomes the nominee. I think that's really a secondary factor in a lot of ways.
We've heard so much about Macomb County. Was it Macomb County Republicans or Democrats who switched over, went for Trump? Suburban voters,
Right.
suburban women who went for for Trump in the last election. Now, many of those voters are on the fence.
Right. It looks like from polling and from the midterm election results, Trump is losing suburbs, and he's losing suburban voters.
Macomb County and in suburban Detroit, I should say.
Right, right.
specifically.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit of a surprising result there, but I don't know that he can count on holding on to those voters that he got last time. His margin in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania was tiny, and if he doesn't hold on to everybody who voted for him last time, he's got real problems in those states, and he lost the national popular vote by 3 million votes. I mean,
Right.
and he hasn't gotten more popular. He has some challenges.
And much of that was people said that Hillary Clinton just wasn't a good, strong candidate and didn't go to Michigan enough and took it for granted, right? Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's one of the criticisms you hear a lot of times. She was not a particularly popular politician during the election. I don't think Trump can count on Joe Biden being as unpopular.
All right, well, it'll be fascinating going forward. I know that you'll be watching it along with your students over at the University of Toledo, Dr. Sam Nelson. Come back in just a minute and talk about the Cancer Connection in Northwest Ohio. Right after this, Conklin Co continues.